Good night. Welcome to another episode of FirstLight. Welcome. I'm glad you're joining with us. If you're wondering why I took a couple of extra minutes to start, well, it's just called me just trying to get things together. Anyways, yes, I can't give any other excuse than that, other than the fact that I was just trying to get a couple of things organized before. I was like, I've got time, and I'll do this and I'll do that. And then all of a sudden I was like, I don't have time. So anyways, it is good having you join with us. As always, I always encourage you to put your name in the chat room, or not your name, just say hi in the chat room. Facebook will do the rest and say who you are, as well as on YouTube. For those of you who are joining us on YouTube, good morning, Richard. Great having you with us this morning. And for those of you who have been checking in on me and making sure that I'm still breathing, thank you. My IQ dropped a bit with all of the tests that I was taking, just to make sure, because I am out in the public. I wanted to make sure that I did not have COVID. I do not have COVID, but the cough is probably, this is the first day that I feel that I may be able to not have to take any pain medications, just for the stuff happening with my the head. It's the coughing. It's not so much nothing really hurts in here. It was never really deep. It's just when you're coughing, your head's it just feels like you're I don't know, in an MMA fight or something like that, and losing. See, here we go. Anyways, good morning. Good morning, Linda, and good morning, Doug, as well. And maybe I'll have a sip. I thought that it would be fitting today to have this mug. It says this: I don't do tea parties. Okay. Got this, got this at Disneyland or Disney World forever ago. But anyways, we've kept it, and I've been drinking a lot of tea in this last week, and today it's coffee. Just thought I'd let you know. But yeah, it's good having you join with us here, and it's been exciting going through this. I was going through all of my notes just recently, just kind of seeing where we've gone, because we're shaping this last season, the last act that we kind of talked about last week, but this last season to how does this culminate? So I was just kind of reviewing where we've been, and it's been interesting. Good morning, Laura. It's great having you with us today. But it's been this interesting journey of the areas that we've seen God work in us, and then as well through us, and now we're talking about around us, and how the first season was about leading self, then leading others, and now we're into leading change, because it doesn't matter if we are not really bringing a change to the world around us. So I was just kind of shaping that, and and really looking forward to what's going to take place. We're also in this Everybody Ought to Know series, which I think is really, really cool. I see some of the names here of people that have come to that table on Sunday mornings and shared scripture that they have had and been working and memorizing in that. So it's been really cool. It's been really good to do that. So I'm looking forward to this Sunday too, because I think that this is going to be a message that a lot of people probably have struggled with over the last not only 2 years, but for a long time. And so I really think that it's going to be an exciting day to be together for that. Anyways, we are going into this second part. It's got no, I can't remember what I called this. So it doesn't come on the screen anymore. But something about, do you know your mission? Or do you, and so anyways, I really want us to talk about that today. So let's just take a moment and let's just pray, and then we'll jump right in. So God, I want to thank you for today. Thank you that you've got me through the last week, and just helped me to rest when I needed to rest. And sometimes you'll make us to lie down in green pastures. You make us to lie down. And so I thank you for that time of rest, as well as just being with my body now, and pray be with each person as well in our group. God, help us as we discuss this today, understanding what you have called us to, Lord, to rise us up into maybe what we don't feel that we're ready for, but you feel we are. And we ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen. All right, cool, awesome. All right, well, anyways, we are, as I said, going through this thing and, leading change. So last week we talked about just that overarching idea of that and dispelling the darkness. And so if you've not watched that, feel free to watch that on our Facebook feed here. We're updating the last few episodes on YouTube, so they'll be up there in the next day or so. So for those of you who are watching YouTube and saying, okay, where are they coming? They're coming. We just have had a couple of other things that have been a bit more of a challenge and time consuming at the church, but we're going to be making announcements about that very, very soon, and we're excited about that. But this week I want to look at what Jesus did with these brand new disciples. Okay, I don't think we catch this. We think about Paul and Peter, and we think about all these crazy things that they end up doing in the book of Acts, and reading through like the Pauline epistles, which are basically the letters that Paul wrote, and the other things. We see these great things that happen, but I want you to see what Jesus does with these brand spanking new disciples. So let me just kind of bring you a little bit of a really quick recap. I'm going to start at Matthew 4. We're not going to end there, but start at Matthew 4 and just whip through this thing. You've got the temptation of Christ. Then you've got, right after that, Jesus comes and he sees this guy named Simon. And he says, hey, follow me. And his brother Andrew, hey, by the way, follow me, right? And then he turns around the corner, sees James and John, does the same thing. Then he goes into some synagogues, he heals a bunch of people, the word gets out about what's going on there, right? So then he gives some big 3-chapter sermon on a mountainside, and then after that, there's some healings, and then a bunch start following him. Jesus was first, I want to say he was the first woke person because he was on a boat, and they woke him up because they were all worried that things were going to fall apart there. Then there was this other healing. And then, catch this, at this point, all this has happened, just like boom, 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 boom. And then he calls Matthew, the tax collector, and he calls him to follow him as well. So here we're like in Matthew 7, or Matthew 8, 9, kind of leading into there. And then immediately, after he calls Matthew, he says, Matthew, get your buddies, pull all your buddies together. And then Jesus kind of gets chewed out because he's like hanging out with tax collectors and the sinners, right? And this is what's happening. And then right after that, Jesus says this. He says, it's not the well who need him, but the sick. He says, not the righteous that need him. Here we're in chapter 9, verse 13. But sinners that need him. So there's a few more healings, and then he sees this need, and he prays for some more people. He's like the Lord of the harvest, talks about that. And then we're at the end of chapter 9, okay? Boom, here we go. Chapter 10, verse 1. It says this. Summoning his 12 disciples, now there were others, but still summoning his 12 disciples, he gave them authority over unclean spirits to drive them out and to heal every disease and sickness. These are the names of the 12 apostles. First, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas, and Matthew, the tax collector. Boom! He got like punted right up to the top of the list. He just got picked up. Like it was like a draft pick. Just, going by, see this really good hockey player, and then all of a sudden he's in the NHL. Like it's like boom, he's one of the 12, okay? James, the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. Okay? Here's the first thing I want to get right out of the gate. He gave them authority. Like, come on. Like, Jesus, maybe Jesus, we need to have a chat because, like, you haven't even tested these people. You haven't even given them any chance to kind of earn their respect, but you've already given them authority? Like, what are you getting at? Like, that's kind of crazy, crazy thinking. Like, this guy was a tax collector. He, like, had authority, but it was bad authority. Like, he was given authority by the Romans to basically just put whatever sort of surcharge he wanted on top of their tax. And now all of a sudden you're giving him and others authority. Thomas, like, okay, I'll talk about that in a moment. But you've got these people, and they haven't even been vetted. Like, you see the things that happen. Sometimes I wonder how, I'll just say in politics, how are these the best people we can find? Anyways, I won't say anything other than that. But here, they're not even vetted, and yet you're giving them authority. No practice, no history. They've watched a few things happen with Jesus, but then, like, there's no reference check. He hasn't said, okay, give me 3 names of people that I can call. No, he gave them authority. I want to be so clear in saying this here. This is something that's close to my heart, and I feel like I can say it because I've got Jesus to back me up. And it's this: I would rather have someone eager to learn than someone who's eager to impress. I'm going to say that again. I would rather work with someone who's eager to learn than somebody who's trying desperately to impress me. I don't know if I shared this story before. I was at a church. Guy started coming to the church. Very, very good musician. Very good singer, based on what he had told me. I'd heard a little bit before, but anyways. So it was after 2 or so weeks, and he was really frustrated. I'm not joking. It was like 2 weeks maybe. And he was frustrated that he wasn't being on the worship team. He wasn't leading worship. And I'm like, I don't even know you yet, right? But there was this eagerness to impress rather than an eagerness to have servanthood, and said, I'm here to serve, like whatever you want me to do. I remember, like, I led conferences for worship, and I did all sorts of things. Do you want to know what my start was? Here's my big start. I haven't even told this story. This was my big start in leading worship at conferences, camps, and all that. Setting up chairs. That was my big start. I would show up early to youth night, and I would set up chairs. And I remember I was asked one day if to run the overhead machine. Right? I got so excited, and I was on this. I practiced to make sure that those, like, transparencies were the right direction and not upside down, because I didn't want to mess up. No. I just wanted to learn. I was a sponge. Okay, and I'd rather have somebody who's eager to learn than somebody who's to impress. And here's if you want to take these, if you take notes or something like that, is that we easily forget that people are waiting to be trusted, not waiting to be tested. I better hold on my notes. We have a whole generation, and I want to even say 2 generations, that are rising up, and some people are afraid to let go of what they have. And there's wanting that generation to just kind of prove themselves worthy. People are not wanting to be tested. They want to be trusted in. This generation growing up, they just want people who believe in them. And so even us as a leadership, we've started having discussions about, okay, and when we've started up certain organizations, like certain teams, we have our capital fundraising team. You'll hear about that in an email coming up on the next day, probably. But that we actually said, okay, who can we start bringing into these groups that are younger voices? Not because we want to give them experience. No, we want to hear from them, right? We want to trust them. Here, you don't realize, but these guys, these disciples are probably late teens, early 20s, maybe. And so you've got these people that end up being the apostles. That's why, like, John, like, lasts a long time. You go, how did he last so long? Well, because he was young when he started. So you've got these people who are, like, just eager, but we don't give them these opportunities. But Jesus, he shows a different way on this, right? And so I'd rather trust someone to be and to be proven wrong than to judge someone that I refuse to trust. Okay? Trust is earned. Yes, I get it. But you have to give them an opportunity to gain the trust. I don't know if it's like quiet in the room there. I'm not seeing a bunch of comments here. Maybe you're listening, maybe you're shaving, and that's fine. It's cool. It's cool. Maybe you're driving, so don't type. That's a good idea. But I'm saying to you here that we need to understand that this generation, we have a whole bunch of people, and we're wanting to change the world. Well, every year that we get older, the world is changing with a world that's coming in and making those decisions, and we need to be investing in them. Let me just say in September we're going to have a lot of fun. Anyways, but we need to be investing in them. Investing in this group. Okay, I got to keep going, moving here. Yes, okay, I got to keep moving. Okay, verse 5 says this. Jesus sent out these 12, the ones I mentioned, after giving them instructions. So it wasn't just like, foo, okay? No, he gave them instructions, okay? So it's important to still have accountability. You empower, but you bring accountability. Whenever you see me do this, just know the time is going to fly. But that's really what leadership is all about. Leadership is about empowering people, but making sure that there's an accountability as well. There has to be both. You can't give someone accountability, or you can't give somebody empowerment without some form of accountability, because you are then just letting them do whatever they want. And I'll talk about that in a moment. That's not what Jesus did here. He gave them instruction here, and we need to do that. Now, here's the other thing. Sometimes we put too much accountability on people, and because we're not willing to empower them. It has to be a teeter-totter, okay? It has to be. Okay, it says this. It gave them instructions. Don't take the road that leads to the Gentiles. And don't enter any Samaritan town. Instead, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So let me say this again. Don't go into Gentile towns. Don't go into the Samaritan area. Go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, there's something really, really important to catch in this thing, okay? He gave them authority, but he did not give them autonomy. Okay, I'm going to say this again. He gave them authority, but he didn't give them autonomy. He didn't say, just do whatever you want. It's important that there's the empowerment, but also the accountability loop there. He may have given them the responsibility, but he also gave them boundaries and gave them hard borders, okay? Let me tell you something. You will learn more about a person's promise and their potential when you permit them to gain your favor, okay? So you basically say, okay, you're going to hear, as I start saying this, as I'm even thinking it, I'm like, guys, you can't tell me you don't already think maybe where this is going to go. But you give them a little. And if they do well in the little, then you give them more. You give them more, you give them more. See, that's the problem with the parable of the talents. People think that that's a reward. It's not a reward. It's a responsibility. So he says, okay, the person who took care of one town will give you another town. The person takes care of 2 towns or 5 towns, we'll give you 5 more. Okay, it's an economy of scale. And so if you are integral and if you're good in the little things, then you're going to be faithful in the big things. That's what he's saying. If we see the character already there, then we're going to see it continue on. Great having you, Chris, with us this morning as well here. So that's what you get. So you learn more about a person's promise, what their potential is, when you give them an opportunity to gain your favor. Okay? All right. So just knowing you believe in them, okay, will build them up. I believe in you. I tell you, I cannot stress that enough. People want to know that they are trusted, so that they don't let you down. And then if they let you down, well, time will tell. And that's okay. So you put borders on there of what you're willing to risk, I guess, as a leader, of what you're willing to risk. Let's try this out. Let's try this out. And you build them from that point. But make sure that those boundaries are what I call actable. Okay, not actionable, actable. Okay, so there's a phrase that we use, or there's a acronym. ACT when we're talking as leadership, staff, board, whatever. when we're looking at things that we want to do, these objectives, ministry objectives, or anything like that, we ensure that they have the ACT acronym, which is one, attainable. If it's not attainable, then you lose hope and you lose all sorts of momentum and stuff. It has to be attainable, but it has to be challenging. Can't be a cakewalk, okay? It can't be like you're on the green and get it in the hole in 17, okay? No, it has to be challenging. So it has to be attainable, has to be challenging, but it also has to be trackable. Okay, so you have to be able to say, okay, how are we doing towards this? So you don't say, well, we want more money or we want more in our student ministries. No, what do we want to see? So it's attainable, challenging, but also trackable. Okay, so it's important to understand that when you give somebody authority, you also want to be able to put the boundaries and put the expectations on there as well. Okay, so then Jesus says this, and hopefully we'll get through this pretty quick. Jesus said, don't take the road that leads to the Gentiles. Okay? Understand, Jesus is setting them up for a win. Okay? That's really what he's doing. He's setting them up for a win. Right, Doug, I agree. Trust is indeed the foundation. You will hear me say it 1,000 times. That trust is the greatest commodity that I can think of. Okay? Because you can get money, lose money. We've all done that. Okay? You get trust. It's going to take a long time to get it back when you lose it. Okay? Anyways, let's move on here. So, yes, this is exactly, we're right on point here. But Jesus is setting up the brand new, paint is still wet disciples here. And because he says, don't go to the Gentiles, because these are anti-Jewish people. They're across the line. They're not even in the same scope, okay? Then he also says, don't enter any Samaritan town. Now, we've talked about this before. The Samaritans, they weren't anti-Jewish. They're kind of Jewish. They're kind of somewhere in there. I spoke about that when we were doing John 4:24. The God is spirit, right? Those that worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. Because the Samaritans, they kind of understood stuff, but they were holding on to the past, right? So they're not anti-Jewish. Even though, and actually, as you read the text, the Jews hated them. It never said the Samaritans hated them, but they were kind of Jewish, just kind of Jewish. So where you have the Gentiles that had crossed the line, now you have the Samaritans that have blurred the line. Okay, so Jesus is setting them up here because think of it. Go all the way back to the book of Genesis, right to the beginning. Satan didn't lie; he just half-truthed. Did God really say? Did God do this? And then Eve is like, maybe, right? So it's not blurry lines either. He says, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And I look at it in 2022. Go to the burnt church. The people who have been burned by the church. The people who have been hurt by the church or people in the church. The people who have de-churched. COVID's kind of done that. You know what? I'm going to just kind of do my own thing, right? The de-church, go to them. Go to those that were abused by church. Go to those that were manipulated by church or manipulated by those in authority in the church. Go to the ones who who've forgotten what they still know. Or maybe they have blocked what they still know. That's what Jesus said. Go to these people. Go to the people who already know, but just need to be reminded of the truth. And I want to tell you that is something that's dear to carry in my heart. I think that there are a number of people, whether it's, is recorded, people for various reasons have given up on our church in the past, or given up on the church, or they've allowed people to cause them to put up a barrier between their relationship with God. And they may even say, no, I'm just going to worship God myself, or, I still love Jesus. I just don't want to come to church or anything. Well, it's like saying, I love you, I just hate your bride. You know, yeah, like I could, I don't think I would hang around many people ever if they said, Craig, I love our time together. But Gary, no, it's ixnay, it's not going to happen. So we're the bride. And so it's our responsibility to kind of step things up as our own church. We can't, do anything for anybody else. But can we go to the lost people of Israel? Just like those? And Jesus gives the newbies that responsibility. He says, just go love them. Just go to the lost people of the lost sheep of Israel. Okay, I'm going to move on here. I got 5 minutes here. He says in verse 7, you catch this. He says, as you go, proclaim the kingdom of heaven has come near. Heal the sick, raise the dead. What? These guys are newbies. This is so cool. That's like the major league stuff you're calling out here. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, heal those with colds, drive out demons. Freely you've received, freely give. Here's what I want to say. As you go, proclaim. That's what Jesus says. As you go, proclaim. Know your mission field. Each person has a mission field. And I want to say that maybe one of these days I'll talk about early on in my faith, I was trying to reach out to a Satanist. Maybe I'll tell that story. So I don't have time right now, but maybe I'll tell that story sometime. But I was trying to reach out to a Satanist. I wasn't ready for it. And God was gracious and God helped me through that situation. But know your mission field. Even like if any of you say, well, I don't know. Look, it doesn't matter where you are. He threw the newbies right in and said, heal the sick, raise the dead. Like, you've been given that authority, but work with the people who have the closest tie to what you already believe. He says, what you've received, this is Craig McKibben version, what you've received, it's not to be hoarded. We can't lead change when we don't offer change, when we don't bring change, when we don't show what things could be like when there's change. The church is irrelevant when it doesn't meet the breakdown in people's hearts. We are the hope of the world because we have Christ in us. And so we should be going and proclaiming, not on a soapbox, some do, and that's fine, but just going to those maybe that are close to us, maybe that have stopped coming to church. Maybe you're looking, on Sunday, you go, I haven't seen this so-and-so in a little while or a long while, or I've heard they left. Proclaim, go. You have Christ's authority to go and to speak to those, the lost sheep of Israel, okay? It's meant to be given away what God has given us. The healing he talks about, the deliverance, the life, okay? And that all things that are not meant to stop with us are meant to move on. It doesn't stop with us here. We don't go, we're it. No, it's to move on. Judges 2. Judges happened because they stopped proclaiming. They stopped sharing what God was doing, and then this big cycle of oppression and deliverance takes place. Let's not stop sharing what God is doing. That's all it is just being a witness. Okay, you know what? That's, you almost got it out of me. You almost got it out of me. You got to come next week. We'll talk about it. With that said, so here is, and this is what I want to get at. That, yes, he says to those 12 people, go to the lost sheep of Israel. But they don't. They don't listen to him. No, they did listen to him. It just happened later. Because at the end, when Jesus leaves, he goes, start in Jerusalem, go to some Judea and Samaria, and then the ends of the earth. He says, you've done it. You've done a great job here. Now I'm giving you authority to move your boundary stakes, to move out and to bring it out to the rest of the world. The whole world needs to know about Jesus. And so we start where you're like your own folk and then move out from there. Okay. So think of who Jesus chose. I want to be clear. You might go, well, I don't know. Like I can't have much to say. He chose a betrayer. He chose a denier. He chose at least two thieves, okay? At least two power movers. He chose a skeptic, okay? Not only did he trust them, but he gave them authority. And here's what I said. The denier, the betrayer, all that stuff, that happened later. So he trusted them, and then time told, and then he brought them back in. Except for one. One didn't come around, okay? But he gave them the responsibility. And then through that, it exposed the real issues, and then Jesus could deal with them. He says, Satan's, get behind me, Satan. And he could deal with these things as they came out. And I want to clear this up, or I want to close with this. Jesus has given you authority. I'm giving you authority because Jesus is giving you authority to go to the lost people around you, those who are hurting, those who have forgotten the joy of God, and bring them the hope. Share with them that. You can keep reading on. And it basically says, you know what? If it doesn't work out, that's fine. But at least bring the hope to them there. So here's the first step as I bring this to a close. What's your mission field? Ask yourself, what's your mission field? Who do you believe that God may be leading you to go to in the next day, preferably today, or in the next days to come? And just say, hey, I just want to tell you I've been praying for you, or talk to them and say, how are things going? Whatever it is, let God lead on your heart. I trust you because Jesus trusts you. Let's bring the hope of Christ back to those around us. Okay, I've overstepped my boundaries. Okay, my own boundaries here of time. God bless you guys. Can't wait to see you next week. You almost got it out of me. But next week, we're going to keep going on with this whole idea of how does that look? Okay, God bless you guys. Have a great day. Bye now.